Trigger warnings for this episode. This episode will discuss fat phobia, verbal abuse, and infidelity. If these subjects make you uncomfortable, please feel free to click off. Otherwise, let's continue. In the year 2008, I was in my early teens when I watched Why Did I Get Married for the first time. I saw a woman named Sheila deal with her husband's verbal abuse about her weight and his infidelity. He even made it seem like her fatness was the reason he was unfaithful. Eventually, that marriage dissolved, and by the end of the movie, Sheila is married to another man and had lost a significant amount of weight. Watching this at an age where I didn't have much life experience, I always assumed that the message behind Sheila's story was to wait for a good man who will help you lose weight. I thought Troy was the prize Sheila won for losing weight. However, when I rewatched the film with an adult mind, I realized I was wrong. Hello, students. Welcome back to the Mutant Academy podcast, where we discuss social issues in media as well as life lessons. Now, I was originally going to do this as a filming video, but unfortunately, I had too many life circumstances that didn't allow me to film. So, while a lot of you on the Spotify and Apple are listening to this via audio, the YouTube watchers are watching another speed writing video. So, I apologize for that. In this video, I am brain dumping a lot of thoughts and ideas for an upcoming podcast episode about the 2023 remake of The Color Purple. So stay tuned for that. I'm hoping to have it queued for the anniversary, but who knows what could happen. Also, I owe you an explanation as to why I have not uploaded an episode in literally a year. Disappearing for a year was not my intentions. So if you don't know, I have been staying with my mother while I try to get a new place and deal with some financial stress from poor decision making. And along with that, I've been dealing with my health, which I sometimes talk about on Twitter. And yes, I still call it Twitter. And I've been also helping with my mom's health as well. Pretty soon I'm going to be moving and might need to take on a second job, but I'm still here with great ideas and I still love to share with you. And I'm actually working on being more consistent now that I learned that my problem is time management and project management. So I'm trying to do better about that as well. Also, I was going to come back on the anniversary of Selah and Spades to do my annual Selah and Spades episode. But honestly, when I filmed it, it was so bad. And unfortunately, I did not have time to fix it. So I decided I was going to skip this year and just be prepared for next year because the quality of that video was just terrible. And you guys do not deserve that. Now, for today's episode, I wanted to talk about the character Sheila from Tyler Perry's franchise, Why Did I Get Married? And how I learned the value of self-love from her. Although I'm very open about my dislike of Tyler Perry, I have to give him credit when it's due. Even though Sheila's portrayal is controversial for many valid reasons, I wanted to focus on the positive aspects of her character and how I relate to her. But before I get into that, I want to get the promos out the way. So, if you would like to support me in this podcast with a monetary donation, the link to my Ko-fi page will be in the description. I'm going to do better about uploading there, and I'll even start posting some concepts about fanfic ideas that I'm working on. I've also decided to return to blogging, so I'm now posting articles on Vocal Media, Substack, and Medium. I am Headmistress to Little Chanel on all those platforms. And right now I have an article about why the Selah and Spades series would be essential to YA Media today. Also, I recently uploaded an article about the Nashuri ship, why I find it toxic and abusive, and how the enemy to lovers trope is often conflated with romanticized abuse. The link to this article and my Selah and Spades article will be in the description. And lastly, I want to bring up BVP Coffee. BVB Coffee is a black-owned coffee brand founded by students at Howard University. The coffee is made of different ingredients from around the world. Each coffee sale supports students, and they're currently on a mission to provide scholarships. If you would like to support this brand, be sure to use my discount code to Little Chanel or scan the QR code on the screen to get a percentage off your order. Now, let's get into the mess that is Why Did I Get Married? Now, for those of you who don't know who Sheila is, I'm going to introduce you. Why Did I Get Married started off as a stage play written, produced, and directed by Tyler Perry in 2003 that eventually became a film in 2007 and a sequel in 2010. The story revolves around college friends who get together for a retreat where they relax and rekindle their marriages. However, this retreat turns into a disaster when secrets that cause strain in these marriages are revealed. Sheila is one of the characters of this ensemble cast. She was originally played by Kelly Price until Cheryl Pepsi Riley took over the character in the 2006 DVD release, and then portrayed by Jill Scott in the 2007 film and the 2010 sequel. Her story centered on her toxic marriage with a verbally abusive and unfaithful husband named Mike, who blames her weight as the reason their marriage is strained. The other characters of Sheila's story are Mike, Trina, and Troy. Mike is the verbally abusive and unfaithful husband Sheila is married to at the beginning of the story. He was portrayed by Cordell Moore in the play and Richard T. Jones in the film, who has yet to be forgiven by the black community for this role. In the story, Mike is having an affair with Trina, Sheila's fake friend, behind her back because she's younger and thinner. He marries Trina in the play, but the movie franchise implied that they had a brief relationship that ended without explanation. In the play, we see more of their relationship, and he's shown to be verbally abusive to Trina as well. So it was never about Sheila's weight. Mike is just a terrible person. Not only that, he's obviously miserable with Trina because she lacks what made Sheila great, such as her ability to care for the house and Mike's business. He traded aesthetics for misery. I have a theory that Mike is the cause of Sheila's weight gain. Considering that Sheila in the play had children, she possibly gained weight with the pregnancies and the stress of raising a family with a man that doesn't love her, while Sheila in the movie possibly gained weight from the stress of her abusive marriage. I think it's ironic that he berates her about the weight gain when he's likely the cause of it. Trina is Sheila's fake friend who is having an affair with Mike behind her back. She is played by Demetria McKinney in the play and Denise Boutte in the movie. Both of these actresses took very different approach to this character. Demetria's Trina was more overt and unapologetic about how terrible she truly is, such as when she chose to flirt with a now married Troy, even though she's established in the first act that he's not her type. Denise's Trina was more sneaky, subtle, and slightly remorseful for her actions, and she has a fan theory that she set Sheila up to be insulted by Mike when she said that Mike would love to see her in the cream silk nightie. Trina loves to shop and spend Mike's money, as we saw in the play, but only implied it in the movie. And since Trina didn't return for the sequel, audience have been left to think that the relationship ran its course. I believe she found another man with more money. I don't want to call Trina the G word because of the negative connotation associated with black women. However, it's very obvious that she was in a relationship with Mike for the money. Because what else does that man have? Troy is the man who becomes Sheila's husband by the end of the story. However, Troy in the play is different from Troy in the movie. In the play, Troy was played by Tony Grant, and he's been a member of their friend group since childhood. Troy in the movie is played by Lamont Rucker, who I've had a crush on since this movie, and he's a sheriff who owns the house the couple is residing in for the retreat. Personally, I like movie Troy better because marrying a friend's ex-wife is foul, even if Mike was an abuser. Troy in the film owed Mike nothing. Now that I've established the lore surrounding Sheila, I want to talk about how I relate to her. When I watched the first Why Did I Get Married film, I saw a lot of myself in Sheila. Like me, Sheila was overweight and feeling low about herself because she's a constant target of fat-shaming verbal abuse. In school, I was always a target of fat jokes about eating large amounts of food or that I was built like a linebacker, and some people just picked on me because they could. And as if school wasn't hard enough, I had to endure verbal abuse from my own grandfather. My relationship with my grandfather was similar to Sheila's marriage with Mike. I wrote a personal essay that goes into detail about that relationship, but I'll give a brief overview here. The essay is published in the Planet Fizz magazine. Planet Fizz magazine is an independent publication that showcases the visual and literary arts of black creators. I was fortunate enough to have my essay about my grandfather published in this magazine. The issue is still free, so please support the founder of the magazine by grabbing a copy of this issue. Thank you, Planet Feeds Magazine, for taking a chance on my work. Now back to the commentary. Frankly, my grandfather is an undiagnosed narcissist, so he has ideas about certain things and feels that everyone should conform to those ideas. He always believed that skinniness is healthiness, and he will often remind me of the harsh health conditions of an overweight person, even in moments when I showed a little ounce of self love. Before I continue, I want to have this little soapbox moment to say that fat people are aware that our weight can come with health problems. So, loving ourselves loudly and proudly is not us glorifying obesity or promoting unhealthy lifestyles. We are allowed to love ourselves despite how society sees fat people. If that bothers you, seek therapy and figure out why it bothers you that people still choose to love themselves even if they don't fit into a white supremacist beauty standard. Back to the topic. So, my grandfather did have a genuine concern about my health. Both of my grandfather's sisters have diabetes, and one of them died in a diabetic coma when I was younger. Diabetes is also genetic on both sides of my family, so unfortunately, when I got my own diagnosis last year, it was inevitable. The problem was that he would express his concern with name calling, hurtful jokes, and once he downplayed my mental health when I expressed how I was barely eating because it sometimes felt like a chore. What eventually made me in that relationship was when he insulted me for wearing a cosplay I felt beautiful in. Between the school bullying and the abuse of my grandfather, I found it hard to love myself. Prior to watching the first Why Did I Get Married film, the only representation of fat people I've seen in the media, besides the movie Fat Girls, centered on weight loss. Because Sheila's story centered on her weight, I saw her as yet another plus size character who started out as a fat woman and slimmed down by the end. For this reason, I thought the message behind Sheila's story was that losing weight will help you find a good man or something like that. When I rewatched the movie with an adult mind, I realized that Sheila's story was about the importance of loving yourself. Like me, Sheila didn't love herself. One indication of Sheila's lack of self love was her wig. Now, granted, it's a Tyler Perry film. His wigs are rightfully criticized because they're terrible. But it worked in this case because it showed how Sheila felt about herself. Her wig at the beginning of the film looked unkempt, as if she didn't care enough about her appearance to run a brush through it. Even in the scene when she's wearing the silk nightie hoping Mike would give her attention, the wig looked as if she had just pulled it back and didn't try to style it. It seemed that Sheila had grown used to her husband belittling her, that she didn't make the effort to look beautiful because she didn't feel beautiful on the inside. This further adds to my theory that Mike may have been the cause of her weight gain. Another indication of Sheila's self-esteem problems is the way she would make self-deprecating jokes, something I've done myself. The first time she did this was in Cheryl Troy's office when he asked her if she was hungry after driving from Atlanta to Colorado, and she responded, "Don't I look hungry?"
You hungry?
Don't I look hungry?
What's that supposed to mean?
Come on, don't act like you don't see I'm a big girl, okay?
Well, big girls gotta eat too, right?
This is in reference to this fat phobia belief that fat people are this way because we eat large amounts of food and we're too lazy to exercise. While this may be the case for some fat people, not that we're allowed to judge, other factors that should be taken into consideration are genetics, medication, mental health, and other underlying conditions. And the simple fact that minding your own business is free. I'm reiterating that I think Sheila's weight gain is due to the stress of being in a marriage with that man, and it could also be genetic. Still, the fact that her knee jerk reaction to a simple question was to deprecate herself shows how much she's affected by her husband's verbal abuse. This is later confirmed in the diner scene where Troy calls her out on it, and she says she's gotten so used to Mike's negative comments that she tries to soften the blow by insulting herself before he can. Honestly, I feel this because at one point in my life, I lived by the mantra that no one can hate me more than I hate myself. So it left me unbothered by insults. Hello, editing Tallulah here, and I just now remembered something. So, in the process of me editing this episode, I remember the scene from earlier in the movie where they went to the store and Trina saw the thing in the window that she thought Sheila would look great in. And Sheila said, "It's going to take two of those to fit half my behind."
Gorgeous, Sheila. I like that.
I don't like it. Well, I think you should get it. Me? It would take two of those to fit half of my behind. Okay. You tripping. Come on.
A third indication of Sheila's lack of self-love is her self-sacrificial ways. Now, it's not a bad thing for people to want to inconvenience themselves to help others because that's the point of building a community. It's an admirable trait, but it becomes a problem when this person is constantly putting others before themselves and their well-being. An example of this is in Act 2 of the play, when Sheila tells Mike that she was the reason his construction business was doing well. She, not Mike, would stay up to the wee hours of the morning working on the financial books and making calls when things weren't adding up. Mind you, she did this to make sure that their family was financially in a good place while he was verbally abusing her about her weight and cheating on her with her best friend behind her back. And that's why his business began to fail once Trina got the picture. Another form of Sheila's self-sacrificing behavior takes place in the second movie, years after her divorce from Mike. While he was battling cancer, Sheila was driving him to chemo and taking care of him in other ways. She did this as a courtesy because she asked Mike to help Troy get a job, a decision that I do not agree with. Now, the fact that she was willing to take care of the man that abused her for years and ask him for help speaks volumes about how she feels about her self-worth. Now, even though this happened in the second film, I can't argue that self-love journeys aren't linear. So while Sheila did grow into a character who has no problem speaking up for herself, she still needed to shed some of that love and trauma she had with Mike. And that's the sidebar comment. I feel like Tyler Perry used cancer as a means to punish Mike for being a terrible character, but I might discuss that in a different episode. Now that I've examined the ways that Sheila doesn't love herself, I wanted to talk about how she grew to love herself. Troy helped Sheila find self-love. He doesn't get all of the credit because Sheila still had to do the work, but he did play a role. I used to think Troy was a prize for Sheila losing weight, but now that I rewatched, I realized Troy liked her as a person and didn't care that she was plus size. He only worked out with her because that's what she wanted to do. So in this section, I'm going to discuss the movie, mainly because the play had little interaction between Troy and Sheila before the second act. Although there is a scene where the group is talking about why they chose their marriage partners, and Troy speaks about all the reasons he loves Sheila, mainly that she had enough love in her heart for him after experiencing a bad marriage. The first instance we see of how Troy views Sheila was in the office again after he offered her some food after the long drive. When she points out that she's a big girl, he lightheartedly responded, "Well, a big girl's gotta eat." He was more concerned that she was nourished than her size. And while it doesn't seem like a big deal in the moment, it makes sense later when we get to the diner scene. The diner scene takes place after Troy and Sheila walked together for the first time, and they were at a diner for lunch, where they expressed their feelings for each other, though they both seem afraid to act on them. While Troy tells Sheila all the things he likes about her, her intelligence and sexiness, she takes a moment to make a self-deprecating joke about her weight, as she did when they first met. Troy respectfully and with understanding told her to stop doing that because he doesn't like when she downs herself and it makes him uncomfortable. That abusive marriage has affected the way Sheila views herself, and Troy cared enough to tell Sheila about her self-deprecating ways. Now I'm going to take a moment to say how this scene altered my brain chemistry. As someone who suffered relentless bullying from people at school and my grandfather about my weight, I grew up with low self-esteem and barely any self-worth. Like Sheila, I grew to internalize the insults and the jokes that would be made about me before anyone else could make the jokes. When Troy said that Sheila's jokes made him uncomfortable, it made me realize I was doing the same thing to other people. I noticed small gestures others would show that they were uncomfortable, but I didn't realize how serious it was until I rewatched this film. It took me a while to unlearn this behavior because it wasn't okay, and having low self-esteem attracts people with low self-esteem and other toxic behaviors into my life. My inability to love myself attracted my abuser. That and it became draining for people to constantly validate me. It took people caring about me in therapy to start getting better about loving myself. Another way Troy cared about Sheila was through his approach to exercise. He didn't force Sheila to exercise, it was something that he liked to do, and he only suggested it because it helped reduce stress. As someone who's still at the beginner stages of my fitness journey, I can attest that exercising is a fun activity and good for mental health. The conversation about exercise started when she admired his physique, a nice one might I add, and teased that she probably couldn't run fast. So he suggested that they start small by walking. Since the diner scene was the last scene we had of them until the big reveal of their marriage and Sheila's subsequent weight loss, we can infer that they built a habit of walking and exercising together. Because Troy leaned into the fun side of exercising, he enabled Sheila to do it for herself and not to gain the respect and approval of her abuser. Going back to the wig thing, Sheila's wig at the end of the movie was done well. Granted, this was the era of Tyler Perry films where the wigs actually looked like someone put effort into making them look good. In Sheila's case, her wig told a story of how she went from someone who didn't put much effort into her appearance to someone who does. When you have a husband who constantly validates your inner and outer beauty, it motivates you to keep up appearances, but not to the point of becoming unrealistic. Because Troy was always saying positive things to her, it motivated Sheila to take care of herself. In my own journey, I realized that my need to lose weight stemmed from wanting respect from my grandfather and my peers. My size doesn't determine how I should be respected. I deserve respect because I'm a fellow human being. I wanted to lose weight for the wrong reasons, and that's why my previous weight loss journeys failed. One thing I learned is that my size wouldn't have bothered me if society hadn't made it their problem. If my grandfather wasn't bothered, if the kids at school didn't bully me, and if society wasn't constantly pushing diet culture, being plus size wouldn't have mattered to me. I wouldn't have always felt the need to be skinny to gain respect. After taking a break from weight loss to focus on self-love, the journey I'm on now has become easier and more fun because I'm doing it for my own enjoyment as well as my health. People still feel the need to make comments about my body, and unfortunately, I can't do anything about that. But I know now that I don't have to internalize those comments. I didn't have a shared Troy to pour into me, but I had a team. My therapist, my caseworker, my best friends, and the social media mutuals that love commenting with their compliments on my photos. And while I still have a long way to go on the self-love journey, I'm proud of the progress I've made. As for my grandfather, our relationship has deteriorated until he's ready to make a change. I'm still struggling with forgiveness, but it will come in time. Hi, editing Tallulah here again. So I forgot the most important part about this conversation and what really inspired me to do this episode. So it has to do with the conversation that Sheila has with Mike at the end about the play and the movie. So in the play, Sheila says a line of to Mike, "Thank you for the trip back to myself." So basically, it's implied that because that relationship ended, she was able to actually do the work and focus on herself, and so that allowed her time to like heal her heart and allow herself to love again. And in the same way, in the movie, Sheila basically threw back a callback to the line that happened earlier in the movie that says the 80-20 rule. So for context, the 80-20 rule is about basically in a marriage you're only gonna get 80%, you're not gonna get a full 100% of your partner, which makes sense because people are just not 100% of themselves every day. I mean, basically, it's like, are you going to tolerate that? I mean, not tolerate, but can you live with that getting only 80% from your partner every day for as long as you're married? Or do you want to go get the 20%? Now, the 20% is supposed to be like the idea that this person is not a good partner because it's like, they have qualities that don't make them a good partner, but then they have these qualities that like you feel like you miss it in your partner. So you're only gonna get 20% of something. I'm gonna insert the clip of basically the rule because I feel like they can explain it better.
Listen, man, I keep trying to tell your brothers about the 80-20 rule.
The what?
The 80-20 rule. In most cases, in marriage, you're only going to get 80% of what you need. That's it. No more, no less. Most times, 80%. Now, here comes this woman offering 20%. Now, 20% looks real good when you ain't getting it. But the problem is you're going to leave 80 thinking you're getting something better, and you end up with 20.
So at the end of the movie, where Mike felt compelled to bother Sheila for some reason, she brought up the 80. Well, no, I'm sorry. He brought up the 80-20 rule, and then she threw it back in his face, and then told him to go back to Trina his 20. And that was after she basically told him that she thanked him for the time they had together, but the woman she is now does not need him anymore. So basically, in both instances, we see that Sheila has she took the time to get to know herself more, which in the next section I'm going to expound on how I feel about that. But basically, she took time to get herself, learn herself more, and I kind of wish she took more time. So, but I'm gonna get more of that into the next session. But I just wanted to wrap up this little point because I feel like it was important to basically point out how Sheila kind of got through her self love journey, but I forgot to wrap that part up. So, anyway, back to the original commentary. Even though I love Sheila for the lessons she taught me and relating to me, there are some things I would have liked to have seen more about her character. For one, I would have loved if Sheila loved herself without a weight loss arc. Often, plus size characters in media have arcs in which weight loss becomes part of their story. Sometimes this is due to their actors losing weight, which is fine. Then there are examples like Alan from the Parkers, where the character is a recast with a thinner actor and has an entirely different personality. I will discuss Alan in a later episode. Sheila is still considered a plus size character because Jill Scott and Cher Pepsi Riley are curvy women, so the representation is still there. Plus, Sheila's weight wasn't a factor in the sequel. I also would have loved if Sheila had taken time to heal. Now, because the film and play had an ensemble cast to focus on, it couldn't delve much into Sheila trying to recover from her abusive marriage. Plus, there isn't a clear start and end of the movie, so the span of time is unclear. However, being in a toxic marriage at the beginning of the film and in another one by the end is not healthy. Sheila needed time to be by herself and to rediscover herself or find new things. She had finished being someone's wife, so she needed time to be just Sheila. I get that Tyler Perry was trying to push the message of learning how to love again after a broken heart, which is a good message. I have to let it slide for the play because they had time constraints that the movie didn't have. But Troy and Sheila's marriage could have waited for the sequel. And while I understand that Tyler wasn't sure he'd do a sequel, it still doesn't negate the fact that Troy and Sheila got married too soon. Even more so when you consider that his first marriage was never explored, and we're not sure if or how he has healed from that. Closing thoughts. While I still have a one-sided beef with Tyler Perry, I have to thank him for making a character that I can relate to. This is one of the few things he did right. Watching this film again made me realize how similar I am to Sheila and how we both had to go through our own self-love journeys. Watching Sheila go through a bad marriage with Mike reminded me of the bullying I've endured from my peers and my family. I'm happy for the progress we both made on our self-love journeys because we both deserve to love ourselves even if no one else can. Now that completes my commentary for this episode. Now I want to briefly talk about the third Why Did I Get Married film. Why did I get married again? I know I said before that we don't need a third movie, and I also know it's going to be a hot mess, but I'm sad mainly because I want to see where Troy and Sheila are now. So far, I know the premise is about Marcus and Angela's daughter getting married, so I'm guessing they're assembling the friend group to ask the question, why did I get married again? Taraji P. Henson has been added to the cast. Hopefully she's a new character. There's speculations that she might be a recast for Janet Jackson's Patricia, who is notably absent from the cast. And for some reason, I also think her character is possibly married to Mike because the movie is saying, why did I get married again? But we'll have to see once the movie come out. I hope Patricia is somewhere on the island eating fruit and living her best life with or without a husband. And for some reason, Mike is here, which I'm kind of disappointed about because I low-key hoped he was dead. Actually, they didn't announce Richard in the original cast when they brought back, so I'm thinking, oh, Mike's not coming back, and unfortunately, he's coming back. And I'm not saying that he should have died of cancer as a punishment for being a terrible person, but he could at least got run over by a bus or something. And I'm convinced they only brought him back because Richard is a likable person, even if we love to hate his character Mike. Now, a couple of things I hope for in a third film, but I'm probably not going to get is, one, I would love to see an exploration of Troy's first marriage because I feel like that information is essential to understand his character better. I even fan casted Kim Hawthorne as Troy's first wife. Kim Hawthorne was Lamont's TV wife in Greenleaf for like the past few years, so that'll be an interesting dynamic. Hello, editing Tallulah here for the last time. So in the midst of me editing this video, I found out from Kim Hawthorne herself doing a live she was doing on her Facebook page that she actually auditioned to be in this movie for the role that Taraji P. Henson ended up getting. So I guess you could say I'm kind of, I guess, sad or disappointed or something because I could have had the three of them in a movie together and I just didn't get it, and that was something I was hoping for fanfiction purposes, but I guess it's not gonna happen, but it will happen someday. At least I'm hoping, just for my fanfic. That's it, that's all. And the second thing I'd like to see is for Tara and Diane to finally break up. There's a fan theory that Diane wanted to be a rich, career-focused woman instead of a wife and mother, but took on the role because of societal expectations. The idea of women falling into the pitfalls of societal expectations and losing themselves in the process is an interesting one to explore if done with care. Tyler Perry is not the person to do that concept. Plus, it seems like he has issues with women who rather be career-focused and child-free. Well, that's all for this episode. Thank you for listening. Again, I am so sorry for the long wait. And if you would like to stay up to date on when I'm uploading new episodes, make sure to follow me on Instagram at TallulahChanel94, on Tumblr at TallulahChanel, on Twitter as Tallulah_Chanel, or you can join the Mutant Academy broadcast channel on Instagram. The link to that will be in the description. Thank you once again for listening to this episode, and this has been a message from your headmistress. Bye.